Hello, Worldview listeners. I want to take a moment and give a shout out to my friend Luke and his team at increasecreative.co. This season of our podcast, Luke has been helping his team there to produce the content that I hope that's been a blessing and encouragement to you. It's been a help to me to have his behind the scenes work, and I want to give him a shout out and let you guys know about his company. Increasecreative.co is a great partner for you to consider for powerful church communication. Luke's team can create custom websites, compelling graphic designs. They help with original video and, as you've noticed, original podcast content. It allows people like you, people like me, to connect with our communities. So I'd encourage you to let them handle the creative aspect of what you need help with so you can focus on your mission. Take a moment, visit increasecreative.co to learn more about how Luke can help you. That's increasecreative.co.
Welcome to Worldview, a podcast featuring teaching and conversations with Dr. Mike Lester that focus on helping faithful disciples develop a biblical worldview. Thanks for joining us, and here's your host, Mike Lester.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today for another episode of Worldview with your host, J. Michael Lester. I am excited about what we get to discuss today. If you've been following this season, we are talking about how to lead when the path isn't clear. And I think we've all been in those positions. And we've been talking about the fact that there's a process that we go through. Sometimes we do it intuitively. Sometimes we need to think it through step by step, regardless of whether we are doing it intuitively or whatever. We're discussing those steps that we need to take to help us to arrive at good decisions that help us to lead with biblical discernment and help us to go forward. And that simple phrase, go forward, is reminiscent of the instructions that God gave to Moses when he was facing a Red Sea in front of him and an Egyptian army behind him. Seemingly, the way forward was unclear, impossible, didn't make sense, overwhelming at times. And yet, God instructed Moses to go forward. So we're learning from that simple phrase that there is a way forward. We talked about that in previous episodes. There's sort of a three-step movement, if you will, in this process. There is, first of all, the time we take to just really understand the difficulty we're in. True assessment. Emotions aside, what are the facts? Just assessment, gathering data, trying to make sure we understand the big picture, what's at stake with this decision. What happens if I do nothing? What happens if I do the wrong thing? What happens if I presume and jump forward? Just trying to gather data and understand the big picture, and then identifying the fear. What is it that's holding us back? What is it that's making this decision seem so much more difficult than previous decisions in the past? Is there a fear of failure? Is it a high stakes type of a decision? Is it fear of disappointment? Is it fear of letting someone we love down? Is it fear of being misunderstood? Is it fear of humiliation, embarrassment? Is it fear of being wrong? What is that fear? Identifying it and understanding what we're battling truly against gives us the arsenal we need to take the step forward. So we've covered those first three steps in that first movement of just understanding the difficulty. Today, we move into the second step, the second movement of this process. And this is where we decide the next step. So what decision are we going to make? What does this next step look like? And what do we need to do to make that step and to take it and to lead with grace and humility and discernment? And so in today's episode, we're going to talk about step number 4. If I can use it that way, there's these big movements. There's two movements we're discussing so far. Movement 1, or stage 1, is understanding the difficulty. Within that particular stage, there's 3 steps. In the second stage, or the second movement, there's an additional 4 steps. We're going to talk about the first one in that movement, which is step 4 in a 10-step process we're working through overall. So step 4 in this second phase, if you will, is simply learning how to define our support team. Finding the support team. And I want to remind us of a simple statement that no leader moves forward alone. No leader does. And as we think about that simple statement and get our minds wrapped around that concept, I want to call us back to a biblical example again from the life of Moses. Think about when Moses was there in the valley of Rephidim. He'd climbed the hillside so he could overlook the battlefield. Joshua, the general, was down below fighting. Moses was on top there, and he was overseeing the battle and being a visible leader, a source of encouragement to those that Joshua was leading forward. This is Israel's first war as a free people. It comes as a surprise attack from the Amalekites. So Moses begins to follow God's instructions. He lifts the rod of God above his head. It's a symbol to all those below that they are dependent upon God's power, the power of Jehovah for this battle. Well, you know the story. The battle continues. It goes long. And so Moses' arms that are raised becomes fatigued. And the people below notice a phenomenon as Moses' arms drop. The shift in the battle changes. But as Moses' arms are raised, they are being victorious. It's an interesting phenomenon. Every time Moses' arms sink, the enemy surges forward. Every time his arms are raised, Israel surges forward. Well, the moment comes when Moses can no longer hold his hands. It's physically impossible. The weight has just become too heavy. All strength has left him. His strength is gone. And now the battle is seemingly slipping away. And if you know the story, you know that at this moment, two quiet, faithful men step forward, one on each side, Aaron and Hur. They don't give speeches. They don't criticize Moses for being old or weak. They don't encourage him to try harder. They just stand there and hold his arms up. And Exodus 17 gives us this phrase: his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. Why were his hands steady? Not because he was strong, but because he wasn't alone. That scene is more than just a historical moment, more than just a little vignette from Israeli or biblical history. It's a leadership truth. Because every leader faces a day when they cannot hold up their own arms. And on that day, their future and the future of those that they're leading ultimately depends on who's standing beside them. Every leader eventually reaches the hillside of Rephidim, where we grow weary, where we falter, where our arms seem heavy, where the pressure mounts, when we can no longer just push through with our own strength. Our strength isn't enough. And we say, well, we'll just depend on God's strength. And that's true. But sometimes we fail to remember that God's strength often shows up in the forms of human hands. Others walking with us. This is an Old Testament principle. This is a New Testament principle. When we see those that are hurting, then those of us that are strong are to bear the infirmities of the weak. There's a gathering around, there's a holding together, there's a community that's built into the New Testament and Old Testament alone. Now, when you think about this, Moses didn't choose Aaron and Hur on crisis day. He'd walked with them long before the battle came. Wise leaders do the same. They build a support team before it's needed. We know that safety exists in the multitude of counselors. We know cliches like two heads are better than one. But reflections on our personal leadership responses can sometimes be a really, really insightful and interesting study. Knowing what we know as biblical leaders, as ministry leaders, as family leaders who are trying to lead our families to love Jesus, knowing what we know about what the Bible says about counselors and support, knowing all that, we still often default to isolation mode. We tend to carry the pressure alone. It's almost like we feel threatened by any leader who has more knowledge or more experience than we do. We don't want to appear weak. We don't want to be judged as unspiritual or uncertain. And so in our minds, we build this facade that spiritual strength means self-sufficiency, when the Bible over and over and over again counters that as a false premise. The irony is that as we grow and mature in our leadership, we quickly learn that the school of hard knocks isn't the only teacher. There's other ways to learn. We learn that isolation breaks leaders, and we learn that support teams strengthen them. And we become willing, much more willing, to borrow brain because we don't care who gets the credit. We only care that the God-given task is accomplished and that those that we were entrusted to lead were able to lead them to the destination God has in mind. Not for the pat on the back or the attaboys, but because of a faithful team who said, Mr. Leader, Mrs. Leader, we'll follow you, but we want you to know that we're more than just mindless followers. We're here to help. Entrust us. Use us. Let us help you be the leader God's intended you to be, and let us use our strengths to help you lead as well. Ironically, again, as we near the end of our leadership journey, we have many lessons that we want to share. We're hoping and praying that someone will learn from our mistakes rather than going through it alone. But inside, we often wonder, but if we had somebody in our stage right now reached out to us when we were in our 20s, would we have willingly accepted that counsel as a young leader? It's a vicious cycle if we're not careful. This pattern, leaders feeling stuck and needing some wise voices, isn't new. Joshua needed the elders to uphold his hands after Moses' death. God continually tells him to be strong and of good courage. David needs Jonathan. Esther needs Mordecai. Paul needs Barnabas. Job, during the season of suffering that he would never understand, he had 3 friends who came from a great distance and sat silent with him for 7 days. That's the best part of the book. Once they start speaking, it goes downhill. But the fact that they showed up was a great encouragement there for Job at the beginning. Think about the apostles after the crucifixion, hiding behind locked doors, and Jesus appearing in our midst to encourage them. Think about world history. During World War II, when France had fallen, Great Britain needed leadership. Churchill stepped into the void, but he didn't do it alone. History records the men by the name of Eden and Halifax. Their clarity basically helped him see through the fog when the future of the free world literally hung in the balance. And as leaders, we can focus on supporting our teams. We should. We can focus on our direct reports and mentor and pour into, and we should. But we must not neglect the importance of our own support team, those that can pour into us, those that we can reach out to in those stuck moments. Who do you trust? Who truly knows you? Who has the courage, and dare I say the permission, to speak truth to you as a leader, even when it's not what you want to hear? If we don't have an answer to that question, that's a telltale sign that our support team needs some attention. So, as we think about those Red Sea moments, those impossible moments, those moments when we know God wants us to move forward, but we can't see a clear path how to do it. How do we move forward when the path isn't clear? How do we discern what the next step is? How do we understand what is the right decision to make? Truthfully, we just need at that moment some godly mentors, some guides who are further along in their leadership journey. And the emphasis here, by the way, is on the consideration of godly mentors. A multitude of bad counselors doesn't bring a leader safety. It only brings them noise. Think about Israel's history. Israel had 3 kings in their united kingdom. They had Saul. He reigned for 40 years. They had David. He reigns for 40 years. They had Solomon. He reigns for 40 years. We have 120 years of united kingdom. And then the kingdom splits after the death of Solomon. We have Rehoboam, and the kingdom will split. The northern kingdom will be led by Jeroboam. But before the kingdom splits, there is a crucial moment, a leadership opportunity for Rehoboam, and he fails miserably. The son of the wisest man in the world at his time, and perhaps not measured since, the son of the wisest man who possibly lived, has a moment, a crucial leadership moment for the nation of Israel, and he fails. Do you remember the story? Jeroboam comes and presents an option to him, and he says, basically, your dad was a very strenuous leader. He was a difficult leader. He enacted some difficult circumstances upon us, and we would sort of like to communicate to you, if you would make that burden a little bit lighter, we will follow you wholeheartedly. If you'll understand the people, if you'll understand what we're going through, if you will show a little bit of empathy, we will, I promise, rally behind you. We'll have a golden kingdom age like never your dad imagined. He said, let me think about this. Let me seek counsel. So he sought counsel from his dad's counselors. And they were like, what Jeroboam says is spot on. You need to follow. Give in this area, and you will receive so much more in return. You will not be viewed as a weak leader. In fact, you will be a very wise leader. I thank you for your counsel. Let me shop a little bit more for counsel. And he goes to his peers, those who haven't built anything, those who haven't led anything, those who haven't carried the full weight of leadership. And he asks their opinion. And they go, oh, no, if you want to be a strong leader, you need to double the difficulty they feel. They need to know you are the leader. You need to be authoritarian. You need to drop the hammer, and they'll respect you. Well, he got a multitude of counselors. He rejected good counsel. He accepted the counsel from his friends, those without experience. And the rest of the Old Testament tells a tragic story of a divided kingdom of Israel and Judah. Did he have a multitude of counselors? Yes. Did he have safety? No, because he didn't seek godly counsel. He listened to the complaints. He listened to the criticisms. He received counsel, but he chose to go in a different way. He overestimated his own competence. He overestimated the competence of the counsel that he trusted. He underestimated the complexity of the situation. Hindsight being 2020, we could say this: he allowed his inexperience to masquerade as confidence. Seems to be a general principle across time and history, doesn't it? And cultures and languages. There's no exemption. Immaturity inflates our idea of certainty, and maturity cultivates our need for humility. Seems oxymoronic. It seems like a paradox, but it's a principle worthy of us contemplating, especially if we want to lead God's people forward. Let me say that one more time. Immaturity, I'm speaking here of spiritual immaturity, inflates our idea of certainty, but maturity cultivates our need for humility. We're going to come to these difficult moments. There's no doubt about it. The path ahead is going to be clear. We can assess. We can zoom out to the big picture. We can identify our fears. But if we're going to move through this, we're going to need a trusted guide. some counsel, some support that is godly and trustworthy. Yeah, there's safety in seeking a multitude of counselors. I get it. But what do we do? Here's a tough question. What do we do when the multitude that we're seeking counsel from offers competing and conflicting advice? We have the option of just leaning into the group that's telling us what we want to hear, and then we can just sort of do our own thing and say we got counsel. We can listen to those that are friendly to us. We need to ask, do we have people who will tell us the hard truth? Think about the story with Micaiah, the prophet. There he is with the king of Judah and the king of Israel. Jehoshaphat has said, is there not a king? Is there not here a prophet of the Lord? And the king of Israel goes, there's one, Micaiah, but I hate him. But I hate him. That's the words used. No, I can't believe you'd hate him. I never tells anything good. Micaiah is called, and he tells the king what he believes the king wants to hear. He tells him what every other prophet has told him. And the king recognizes perhaps maybe it's said with sarcasm. I don't know, but something tips off the king that Micaiah is not being forthright. And he said, did I not command you, did I not adjure you, and to tell us only what God has shown you? Okay, yeah, if you want to hear it, I'll tell you. He didn't like that. Put Micaiah in prison. But Micaiah was willing to say the hard truth. Jeremiah was willing to say the hard truth. It's not always popular. As leaders, we need to build a group of trusted counselors. But we also need that one person we trust for the final vote. It's an important principle. Yes, there's safety in the multitude of counselors. Yes, we should get counsel from multiple sources. But there's a caveat to that. I just want to stress to us as leaders. Counsel must be weighed, not tallied. Counsel must be weighed, not simply counted. If we believe the goal of counsel is a unanimous decision, we will be frustrated. The goal isn't unanimous consensus. The goal is clarity. It is possible for wise counselors to disagree, not because of foolishness, but because of different vantage points. Listen, if you've been put in a position of ask for counsel and you've given counsel, you understand the importance of perspective. How many times have you personally thought a certain choice was the right decision, but after learning new information, you changed your mind? So from a practical standpoint, I just want to give you some helpful questions to navigate those moments when it seems like counsel may be conflicted rather than safe. Question to think about. Within your support team, who has the most experience or expertise with the implications of this decision? Somebody might be a great guy. He may be a godly person. She may be a godly person, but this isn't their area of expertise. Hear their counsel, hear their thought because they're for you, but weigh it differently than someone who has an expertise in the field. Which counsel is most consistent with biblical wisdom and sound doctrine? Is it possible, this is a question we need to ask, is it possible that advice is being offered that's shaped by fear, self-preservation, personal preference? Your child comes to you as a parent and wants counsel about going to the mission field as a single person. I have all girls, so my situation is to be a single daughter wanting to go through that route. As a parent, there's this great fear that comes up with that question. Why would I want to send my single daughter in a place that I can't protect her? And all of a sudden, I can give counsel out of that fear. There's a good intention there, but there's a bias. Does that make sense? So is it possible sometimes that conflicting advice is coming because we're stepping into the area of a mentor that perhaps is making them uncomfortable? Who's closest to the situation? Because Those closest to us or those who are near us better understand the nuances of the decision that we have to make. I wish every decision was black and white. I wish there weren't implications and nuances. The world we live in, there are nuances to every decision we make. Here's another question. Who has a proven track record of discernment, patience, and integrity? Yeah, there's safety in the multitude of counselors. But we intuitively know that not every voice carries equal weight. So we may not hear a unanimous voice of heavenly wisdom. But if we're discerning, we will see converging and repeating themes. These convergences of principle, they're greater in importance than just agreement and solutions. There might be a variety of solutions to help us go forward, but they need to be aligned with biblical principles. I don't know if you've seen the book by Doris Kearns Goodwin, Team of Rivals. It deals with the political genius of Abraham Lincoln. It's a great book, by the way, Team of Rivals. Lincoln's team was a motley crew. Some of his team were disappointed that they weren't chosen to be president. Each member had their own ambitions. Lincoln didn't choose this team as a group of yes men. He chose them for their expertise. And as decisions were weighed, as he began to make these decisions, he learned to weigh their counsel thoughtfully. He utilized their perspectives and governed wisely. It's a good book and a great lesson in humility. Most people that are insecure would have never invited the people to be on that cabinet that Lincoln invited. Lincoln had a team of rivals, but he recognized that for the good of the country, they could help him lead better. I think a lesson I look at in the Rehoboam narrative. Rehoboam, he goes from hearing a multitude of counselors, and then he rushes immediately to deciding. He goes from hearing to deciding in like 0 to 60. He skips the process of spiritual digestion. And I would encourage us as leaders, after we've received counsel about next steps, about major decisions, take some time to allow God to clarify in solitude what may get muddied in the crowd of voices. And remember that counsel can be collective, but responsibility is individual. You make the decision. You have to own it. You will disappoint some of the counselors. It's just human nature. But the purpose of seeking counsel isn't permission. It's perspective. The multitude will provide insight, better eyes on a circumstance that may be unclear to you. The scriptures will set the boundaries. You can go here, but you can't go past this point because you're outside the realm of what God's going to bless. The Spirit will give you conviction and peace personally. And as a leader, you have to make the final decision. So I just want to leave you in today's episode with just some practical steps on building a support team. It doesn't have to be your team of rivals. They can actually be a team of friends, but a support team. How do we find the Aaron and hers that are willing to help us? What does that look like in ministry leadership? How do we build a team of wise counselors? So give you more of just sort of some talking points to think out loud in your own quiet time. Identify the categories of counsel you need. Maybe it's spiritual counselors or moral anchors. Maybe you need organizational experts. Maybe you need emotional realists that can put your emotions in check. Maybe you need financial experts. Maybe you need technical specialists. Identify the categories that you would like to be able to reach out at any moment that you know there's a group of people that are willing to just hear you and to offer perspective. I would say, sort of as a second talking point, choose character over competence. Yeah, you've got categories that you need, and you could quickly get experts. But before you just go for confidence, make sure the character is there first. Honesty is better than harshness. Humility doesn't mean insecurity. You need someone with courage who will disagree with you. If someone can't tell you no, they're not going to be able to help you. So we're thinking about categories of where we need help. Character is more important than competence. Thirdly, be intentional rather than informal. Let the team know that this is sort of official. You value them as a mentor. Schedule times to just meet with them as a group or meet with them individually. Maybe once a month or once every 6 weeks, you gather these groups if they're across the states, not necessarily in your driving distance, and maybe it's a Zoom meeting where, hey, I just want to take 15 minutes and give you guys some updates. I appreciate your prayers for me as I'm leading XYZ ministry. 4, value truth over relationships. Do you want a challenge or do you want rubber stamping? I have only been in leadership, senior leadership. I've been in academic leadership and some ministry leadership for a couple of decades, but senior leadership really only since 2022. So there's learning curves. There's blind spots. There's learning in my role where the president's responsibility stops and the board's begins, and where does my authority reach, and where do I need permission, and learning to navigate that. And coming into a board meeting and saying, I'm not asking you to rubber stamp this. If you have concerns, if you see red flags, I need you to point these out to me. And then having courage personally that if something is pointed out, I'm not sure if you're understanding where I'm coming from. Let's talk through this a little bit more. This is just healthy, not for ego, but for the benefit of those that you're leading, for the ministries we're called to help go forward. So we need the challenge, and we need to not take that personally. We need to value questions just as much as we value answers. And we need to be okay with somebody saying, hey, what are your motives here? What are you assuming is going to happen here? And is there data to back that up? Because faith and presumption sometimes have a blurred line. And we want to make sure that people have the right to speak to us as leaders. Number 5, choose strategically. Your support team doesn't have to be your peers. It doesn't have to be only people that are older than you. There's a benefit in having both. Here's the value of the wisdom of the generation ahead of you. Here's the perspective of the generation that's with you. And be willing to even listen to the generations coming behind you. They have a different perspective. You may not agree with it. But if you're leading that generation, then knowing what they are, how they're translating your actions will help you to be a better leader. Allow the group to be dynamic. It's not a clique. It's just a group of trusted mentors that you've given access, higher access than anybody else, to help you fulfill God's calling as a leader. At times, new people will be added. Sometimes there's moments when people will be maybe pulled out of that group. It's dynamic. Pray for discernment. We've all heard the expression, nearness is a likeness. So whose voice do you want to invite to the table? Hopefully, you invite those who encourage you to be more Christ-like in your decision-making. When Moses walked down from the hillside, he didn't walk down as a man who had triumphed alone. He humbly accepted the help of Aaron and Hur. Their success was dependent upon a team. He may have gotten credit, but as a leader, he knew he didn't do it alone. He borrowed strength, and as a result, the victory was shared. We are called to assemble a group of trusted Christ followers who can lift our arms when we personally cannot. We need an Aaron, we need a Hur. Because no battle is ever really won alone. So you're called to lead. Sometimes the path isn't clear. You understand the big picture. You know what's holding you back, the fear there. You've assessed, you've gathered data. You just don't even know what the next step should be. First step then. Get together with a group of people that know you, that you trust, who walk with the Lord, who have some expertise and some experience, who know a thing or two about leading. And let them pour into you. Let them give you perspective. This will help unclear the obstacles and give more clarity as you're trying to lead ahead. We'll talk about our next step in the next episode. As we're talking about deciding the next step, we want to gather a team of support, and we'll learn next time. We want to walk in the light that God's already given to us. In conclusion today, I want to just mention, I've mentioned it before, I won't continue to mention it, but if you've yet to receive a free copy of the book, Go Forward, you can go to the Veritas Baptist College website. That's vbc.edu/go-forward. We'd be happy to give you a free PDF of the book, Go Forward. I think it would encourage you, and we'd ask that you would maybe even share it with others. Looking forward to seeing you in our next episode. May God richly bless you. Until then, this has been another episode of Worldview with J. Michael Lester.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of Worldview with Dr. Mike Lester. You can connect with Mike at jmichaellester.com, where you'll also find more discipleship resources. Mike also serves as the president of Veritas Baptist College, an online university dedicated to training ministry leaders virtually so that they can stay where God has called them. Learn more about Veritas at vbc.edu. This podcast is hosted by Dr. Mike Lester and produced by Luke Clayton and the team at increasecreative.co. We hope this episode has helped you grow in your journey of being a faithful disciple of Jesus. And we look forward to having you join us again right here on Worldview.